Okay, so there's like about 3 different ways to make a shape layer. So I think most of you are familiar with just grabbing the pen tool and then being like, wee. And then this thing pops up, and this is what's called a shape layer, as it says, shape layer. So that's one way to do it. You can also just right click on here, go to new, then you'll see shape layer. And then you'll have to like draw something in, or then like use that, which will be the third option, which is you go down to here. So basically what I did is I held down until this stuff pops up, and you can pick which kind of shape you want to make. Exactly. Although with these ones, if you make like a rectangle, so I'm just going to double click on that, and you made a rectangle here, you can't actually fix the path like you would be able to if you just drew the shape. So what I mean is, like, if you go to pen tool and you make my poorly done rectangle, you're able to go down here into the contents, the shape one, and then you'll see path, and you can actually animate that, which you can't do with any of these ones up here. So there's that. So that's how you make the shape layer. So let's actually get into what shape layers can really do aside from just fixing up Disney animation errors. So I'm going to, for now, pick the rectangle one. And I'm going to go down to the contents of rectangle, and you see all this stuff here. So let me just scale that first. So right now you have the fill. You can change the color up here, or you can go down in here and change it here as well. There's different options. You can also just get rid of this if you're not using the fill. You can get rid of the layer if you're not using the fill. I'm going to undo that because I do want the fill. And then stroke is just the outline for it. So you can make it as big as you want, as small as you want. Stroke is down here. You can also play with the stroke here as well. You can play with the opacity here. You can animate the color, anything here. You can also make it so it's not like one line. You can go down into the dashes, click dashes, and you'll see now there's like dashes here that you can play around with. So this is how many dashes you want, and this is like the offset, so telling you like, oh, I actually want it to be like moved over here or over here and whatnot. So there's lots of fun things you can do with this, but there's at least one effect that I want to show you guys today, or a few effects actually. So the first one's going to be like the nice like psychedelic backgrounds that you can do. So I'm going to pick out my square again because I'm redundant. I'm going to go to rectangle and actually make this a square. So you can do that by going to the rectangle path. You just unclick this so you don't want to unify it together. You make sure that these two are the same number. So now you have a perfect square, which is what I want, because I want to make a diamond shape. So every kind of shape is going to have this transformation thing. You go down here, and then you can scale it that way. You can rotate it, which is what I want. So I'm going to go -45. So now we have this nice little diamond shape. Coolio. Okay. Now I'm going to first do a little animation to this. So I'm going to want this to start at 0. I want it to be about that big. You'll see. Just a tiny little animation. And then I'm going to just press F9 and make that easy so it's nice and smooth. Cool. Okay, so now there's only one of those, but I actually want this whole thing to be filled with this little guy and with the same animation as well. So to save time, I can actually go up to this add button, and I'm going to go to this repeater thing here. So I'm going to click on that. Now you want to make sure that the repeater is in the content area, because sometimes it might accidentally go into the rectangle one, which I don't like to do that. I want them to all be out and clear. So I'm going to go down into the repeater. I'm going to tell it how many that I want. I'm going to offset that so it's in the middle somewhere. And then in the transformation, I'm going to position that like so. And I want them to be touching each other. So when you play it back, you have this nice line of different stuff. But I also want it to be up here as well. So I'm going to go back into here, the contents. I'm going to add another repeater. Make some copies of that. Maybe offset a little bit. Go down to transformation. And then instead of changing the number on this side, you change the number on the vertical side. And then just fiddle around with it until you can match it up together. So now you have that kind of transition. And then if you think it's too fast, you can always just go back into here. What I like to do is just click U on your keyboard, and then just all the keyframes that you've done will show up. So since I've only done one keyframing, I can just get to the scale quickly. So there's that. And then the cool thing about AE is that you basically just make one thing and then you can just duplicate it. So I did Control D on a PC. I think it's Command D on a Mac. So now I have two. And I'm going to change the color to the second one. I'm going to move it down a little bit. So now I have this continuing motion. And you can just like keep adding on to that. You can make it different shapes and sizes if you want. I figured the diamond would be easier to show. So there's that one.
Okay, so shape layer effects number 2, I guess, if I decide to upload the first one. So another thing you can do with shape layers is do that like cool little burst thingy that I have trouble explaining. But okay, so essentially you want to go to your pen tool and then try to find like the middle area of the frame and just go 1 point and 2 point, and then try to make it straight. And then if you want to make it straight, I usually just use the grid as my guide. So I'm going to put that there, and then like that there. So I have this one straight stroke, and my fill is off, but you can go here, no fill, you just want the stroke. And 10 is good. Maybe I'll put it to like 15 so I can see it better. Turn my grid off. Okay, cool. So now I have this lovely shape layer. I'm going to go into my little shape layer here. It's going to be shape 1 that you can like rename however you want. So I'm just going to call it like burst. No, I did not spell that right. Burst. Okay. So I have that there. Now I'm going to go to add, and I'm going to go to trim paths. And then this is what I'll be using to animate this thing. So now I have trim paths here. So this is when it gets kind of tricky, kind of not, but you have to like know kind of how it works. So I'm going to animate both the start and the end because I want it to start off at 0 here, go up, but then also have this little end of it also go up as well. So to show that, I'm going to figure out which, so that's my start, that's going to be animated later. The end, I'm going to put down to 0 at first, come a little bit out, and just put that up. So now we just have that straight up. But then as it's going up, I also want to animate the start of it. I'm going to move the start point here, make sure it's at 0. And a little bit after, That's going to be put to 100. And now it's important to make sure that this animation is offset from this animation, because if you put it together, nothing's going to happen. So you want to offset this. And depending on how much you offset it, that's going to show how much of the stroke you have. So if you want like a little thing shooting up, you edit them together, but if you want it to be a little longer, you put them farther apart. And the stroke is longer, but it still disappears. So that's what we want. And then if you want to like say like that's too short, you want to extend more, you'd have to go to the path and just come back to your grid so you keep it straight. You can extend this a little longer so it has more of a path to follow. It has more of a, shoots out a bit more. And then you can just exit that. So now I have this lovely animation. So, I want that. I'm going to close all of that. I'm going to go back to add because I want to have a repeater. Now this repeater is different from the one with the psychedelic pattern that I did last time. So I'm going to go into repeater. I'm going to have around, let's say 18. Essentially you want a number that can be divided by, or that can divide by 360, if that makes sense. Because we're going to be making a circle. So after that's done, I have 18 copies. I offset it so it's in the middle somewhere. Then I'm going to go down to transformations in repeater. I'm going to take the position and make sure they're both at 0, because now I can go to rotate. And it's like that. Now the reason why it's like kind of doing like a twisting motion is because this thing isn't in the middle exactly, so that's the wrong transformation. So I can go back to my path, and if I let me move it, it'll let me move it. There you go. Now it's in the middle. So if you want it to be twisty, just move it to the side. If you want it to not be twisty, just move it back to the middle. And remember, that's in the transformation in the shape, in the actual shape of it, because there's also this transformation that moves the whole thing. So if you might want to make it bigger, you can do that. So make sure you know which transformation you're moving. So that's done. So I have my circle. It's lovely. So they all should be doing the same animation. Also, add one more animation to this. I'm going to go back to the burst. I'm going to go into the transformation burst. I'm going to animate the position so that it also just shoots out. Like that. Then you have your little burst.